politics in part through that lens. When there was talk of the vice presidential candidate Joe Lieberman running for office, there were some within the American Jewish community who were somewhat concerned that now we are going to have a Jew in office. Oh, there's going to be a Jew, and so he is going to reflect, however he governs, on the American Jewish community. And so the American Jewish community was particularly concerned that this guy would now need to be upheld as a role model for American Jews. Now, similarly, let's say somebody is looking at Barack Obama from the perspective, in part, of race, and we were talking about this at dinner the other day when we were on the WND cruise, and you mentioned that Barack Obama might be the last president in American history who governs over America as a superpower. In fact, I think that we are, at this point, largely a minimized superpower. So do you believe that Obama is governing from the perspective of those individuals who might look on him as a role model for the first black president? Do you think that he is a good role model in that vein?
Well, first of all, I think the claim that what we're dealing with is a person who, for instance, is part of the same ethnic group that I am. I mean, my skin is dark and his skin is dark. That's about where the affinity between us ends. He does not look back to the same heritage that I do in terms of American history and background and actual participation of my ancestors in a lot of the things for good or ill that were characteristic of the life of black Americans in the course of American history. And I think that leads to a failure to appreciate some of the travails the nation has gone through, and also the great moral capital that was stored up over the decades by folks who suffered, but also those who fought against the injustices that were suffered by black Americans. In one sense, therefore, we are dealing with someone who is identified with the black American community only on racist grounds, only on skin color grounds. Rather than looking at what really constitutes the basis of community, which is common heritage, history, values, faith, those kinds of things which are truly human in their dimension, we're to put those aside. And I think that that in and of itself is a bad thing. But it won't keep, as a matter of fact, it won't keep the performance of Barack Obama from reflecting badly on the black American community, precisely because folks have accepted the racist paradigm, went out in droves to support him, regardless of the stands he took that were contrary to the basic and essential historic values of the community, simply because of the color of his skin. So I think it's possible that what is turning out to be a debacle, not because of his skin color, but because as a politician and as a leader, he's committed to a failed understanding of human politics, human community, human history. Marxist-Leninism has failed everywhere, and now he's driving this country to perdition by insisting upon the ruthless pursuit of that ideology as he changes America for the worse. And I think that is going to reflect a burden historically back onto the black American community.
We're speaking in studio with Ambassador Alan Keyes, and if you listen to the rhetoric coming from the radical left, coming from individuals like Cornel West, who President Obama actually has called a genius in an article, and actually it was Cornel West who first introduced Barack Obama to the Harlem community at a fundraiser in 2007 on stage, and then railed against the racist American empire. You listen to other individuals, Sheila Jackson Lee and their ilk, Maxine Waters, and they are talking about class warfare. They are talking about, it seems, hijacking the economy, the economic collapse, in order to usher in chaos. And they're also race baiting as well. Are you concerned that this is not just, some lunatic individuals who are making these accusations, but maybe there's an overall plan here to lead us to some sort of class warfare?
Well, I believe that, unfortunately, we're dealing with people who are committed to an ideology that is based upon the idea that there must be this kind of violent conflict. And since the America they found was an America that had, on account of, I think, its basic values, as well as the wonderful blessings that God had endowed the country with, we were a country that had developed probably proportionately the largest middle class in the history of any country in the world. So that instead of the many being poor, the multitude were in fact reasonably well-off middle-class people. I think in the course of the last few years, and culminating in the last couple of years, we've seen a systematic assault on that middle class. An effort by destroying the middle class to reproduce the stark contrast between the haves and the have-nots, the proletariat and the ruling class that characterizes the Marxist-Leninist vision of human political life. And having then pushed the country in that direction by their incompetent policies, by their anti-American policies, by their consciously calculated effort to weaken and destroy the country economically, they then rouse the forces that they have worked with over the course of their political lifetimes in order to bring the country into a position where we're all afraid of this kind of open violence. I think that paradigm, which looks back through the lens of Marxism, Leninism, to the French Revolution, and which rejects the American Revolution, which was actually a revolution based upon a premise of self-discipline for the people, not a premise of angry resentment lashing out in class warfare. They mean to bring the country down. I think they are miscalculating, however, because I think there are still a lot of Americans who embrace those moderate values of our founders, and who believe, in fact, that we are a people called to govern ourselves in both the moral sense, in the sense of maintaining order on the basis of our own internal discipline, and in the sense of getting back control of our government. And I think that it is those people who will now organize through the Tea Party and other grassroots mechanisms in order to make sure that this experiment in the creative destruction of America for the sake of socialism is brought to an end.
Yeah, we are nearly over the abyss. Do you believe that there's any hope at this point to bring us back? And specifically, will you consider, and are you considering, another run in the future, in the near future, for some sort of political office?
Well, I guess I'm one of those people who quite honestly believe that in 2008 we didn't near the abyss, we plunged over it. We are plunging headlong into the socialist abyss, and I think that the only thing that's going to pull us out of it is a miracle. And as I often tell people, if you're going to have to rely on miracles, then you need to stand in the place of miracles, which is in the will of God, addressing those issues first and foremost, like abortion, like gay marriage, that have turned this country away from its godly founding principles. And I think that in the context of doing that, the eyes open to the horizons of possibility for economic life and other things that can then unleash the productivity of our people once again, so that they can begin to deal with the economic malaise and affliction that our incompetent elite classes who have turned away from those godly founding principles have brought upon us. And I think that there's a good hope that that can be done over the course of the time between now and the election in 2012. If people at the grassroots cease to put their hope in these feckless parties that are actually wings of the same socialist-oriented beast, and instead, as is the Tea Party spirit, begin to think about how they can lift up what I call a tribune of the people, place such an individual in the White House, and I think from that vantage point, explicitly committed to the restoration of the founders' vision, the American people will rediscover their character and reclaim their true greatness, which is not in some superpower status, but in the status of the first and most successful experiment in just, democratic, constitutional self-government in the history of mankind.
Ambassador Alan Keyes in Alaska with me. I'd like to see him in the near future in the White House. And Dr. Keyes, thank you for being here on Aaron Klein Investigative Radio on 77 WABC.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.